The massive transport ship lurched as it docked with Galactic Military Academy Station, the artificial gravity briefly fluctuating. Inside the passenger bay, 5 human cadets grabbed their seats, barely affected by the disturbance, while their alien counterparts looked distinctly uncomfortable. Final stop, Galactic Military Academy. All cadets disembark, announced the mechanical voice over the intercom. Jack Porter stood up first, his broad shoulders and sturdy frame typical of humans raised in Earth's heavy gravity. Around him, his 4 fellow humans, Miller, Thorne, Reed, and Davis, gathered their simple canvas bags. They had been worn to pack light, but even their light bags seemed excessive compared to the minimal belongings of the other alien species. Ready to show these space snobs what Earth can do? Miller asked, a confident grin spreading across her freckled face. At just under 6 feet tall with close-cropped red hair, she radiated the kind of physical confidence that came from growing up on a planet that constantly tried to kill you. Thorne, the quietest of the group, merely nodded. His dark eyes scanned the exit where Academy officials waited to process the new arrivals. The humans stepped into the main docking bay, immediately aware of the stairs. The station's artificial gravity was set to the galactic standard, about 0.7 of Earth's gravity, making the humans' movements appear unusually fluid and powerful to the other species. A tall, blue-skinned official with 4 arms approached them, datapad in one hand and scanner in another. His upper eyes narrowed as he looked down at the humans. Earth cadets. It wasn't a question. His voice contained a subtle vibration that suggested distaste. Deathworlders assigned to Section 12, lowest level. Follow the red line. He gestured to a glowing path on the floor that led downward. Excuse me, sir, Jack said, stepping forward with parade ground precision. Our acceptance documents stated Section 5, with the other tactical specialists. The official's secondary eyes blinked rapidly. Plans changed. Section 12. Any issues can be addressed to Commander Vox, your assigned instructor. He turned away without waiting for a response. Reed, the team's tech specialist, muttered under her breath, so that's how it's going to be. The 5 humans followed the red line, passing through grand halls filled with cadets from across the galaxy. Many stopped to stare at the humans. Some whispered behind various appendages. Others simply moved away, as if proximity to Earth natives might somehow contaminate them. Did you see that? Davis pointed discreetly at a group of insectoid cadets. They're actually laughing at us. Let them laugh, Jack replied, keeping his voice steady. They don't know what we can do yet. The red line led them down multiple levels, the surroundings growing progressively less polished. By the time they reached Section 12, the gleaming metal had given way to utilitarian corridors that hadn't been upgraded in decades. Their quarters were a single open room with 5 basic beds, clearly repurposed maintenance staff quarters. A single shared bathroom facility stood at one end, and a small terminal at the other. Home sweet home, Thorne said, speaking for the first time since their arrival. Miller threw her bag onto a bed. They're testing us, seeing if the scary Deathworlders will complain. We won't give them the satisfaction, Jack replied, examining the dated terminal. He pressed his palm against the reader, which flickered reluctantly to life. Their training schedules appeared on screen. Twice as many hours as standard cadets, with half the recovery time. They expect us to fail, Reed observed, reading over his shoulder. Jack turned to face his fellow humans, his expression determined. Then we'll just have to prove them wrong. Earth didn't send us here to fail. Outside their quarters, they could hear the laughter of passing alien cadets. But inside room 12, 5 humans began unpacking their meager belongings, their faces set with the grim determination that had allowed their species to survive on a planet that the rest of the galaxy considered uninhabitable. The battle for respect had begun. The training hall echoed with the sound of heavy breathing as Jack and his fellow human cadets finished their 15th lap. They ran while carrying metal weights designed to simulate Earth's gravity, a challenge that Commander Vox had clearly intended to be impossible. 30 seconds behind acceptable time, announced Vox, a tall, gray-skinned alien with reflective eyes that never seemed to blink. Again. Miller wiped sweat from her brow. Sir, we've completed the course 5 times more than any other squad today. Vox's thin lips stretched into what might have been a smile on his species. Are you refusing a direct order, cadet? No, sir, Miller replied, straightening her back. Then run. Unless Earth humans are too weak for real military training. Jack caught Miller's eye and gave a small nod. They both knew the game Vox was playing. The commander wanted them to quit, to prove his theory that humans didn't belong in the galactic military. Ready for 16, sir, Jack announced, adjusting his weights. 2 hours later, the human cadets stumbled into their quarters, muscles burning. Davis collapsed onto his bed, groaning. This isn't training, he said. It's torture designed to make us wash out. Reed sat at the terminal, reviewing the day's tactical lessons. It's not just the physical stuff. Did you notice we're being taught outdated battle formations? The material they're giving us is at least 20 years old. Thorne, who had been silently stretching his sore muscles in the corner, spoke up. They're sabotaging us. Jack nodded, dropping to the floor to begin a set of push-ups despite his exhaustion. Then we adapt. It's what humans do best. What's your plan? Miller asked, joining him in push-ups. We take their punishment. We exceed their expectations. And we train ourselves in secret. Over the next 3 weeks, the humans established a routine. They endured Vox's increasingly difficult physical challenges during the day. At night, when the station's lights dimmed to simulate evening, they gathered in their quarters to study current galactic military tactics that Reed had managed to download from the Academy's main database. One night, while practicing hand-to-hand combat techniques in their cramped quarters, they heard a noise at the door. Jack signaled for silence, and the 5 cadets froze as the door slid open. A tall, thin alien with iridescent skin stood watching them. It was Krill, a tactical officer known for his intelligence. Interesting, Krill said, his multifaceted eyes taking in the scene. You practice even when not ordered to do so. Jack stepped forward. Sir, we can explain. Krill held up a long-fingered hand. No need, Cadet Porter. I've been observing your squad's progress. Commander Vox's methods do not align with Academy principles. The humans exchanged glances. Your species adapts quickly, Krill continued. You've survived exercises that would kill most cadets, yet you still have energy to train more. He approached their makeshift combat area. However, your technique is flawed. The center of gravity in space combat is different. To their surprise, Krill began demonstrating proper form for zero-gravity grappling. I can show you proper techniques. In exchange, I wish to learn more about how humans endure such conditions. Why help us? Reed asked suspiciously. Because talent should be nurtured, not crushed, Krill replied simply. And because in my 300 years of teaching, I've never seen any species adapt as quickly as yours. The next day, Commander Vox watched in poorly concealed surprise as the human cadets completed his latest impossible challenge, a 10-hour endurance march in heavy environmental suits. Acceptable performance, he grudgingly admitted, checking his datapad. Tomorrow's exercise will be in the zero-gravity chamber. I doubt Earth natives will find that as manageable. Jack maintained a neutral expression, but inside he felt a surge of confidence. Thanks to Krill's secret training, they were more than ready. Looking forward to it, sir, he replied, catching the brief flash of uncertainty in Vox's reflective eyes. The humans had found their first ally, and their reputation was beginning to change. Whispers spread through the Academy about the strange Deathworlders who wouldn't break, no matter what was thrown at them. The main hall of the Galactic Military Academy buzzed with excitement as Admiral Zenth took the stage. His translucent wings caught the light as he raised all 4 arms for silence. Cadets, instructors, and honored guests, his voice boomed through the hall. Today marks the beginning of the 287th Annual Academy Combat Tournament. Jack and his fellow humans stood at the back of the crowd, their red cadet uniforms marking them as first years. 3 months of brutal training had changed them. They stood straighter, moved with quiet confidence, and no longer drew as many stares from other species. This year's tournament will test tactical thinking, physical prowess, and team coordination, Admiral Zenth continued. All squads may enter. The winning team earns automatic promotion and their choice of postings upon graduation. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Such a prize was unprecedented. Humans entering. Porter. Commander Vox appeared beside them, his reflective eyes cold. The tournament isn't for entertainment. Your primitive species would only embarrass yourselves. With respect, sir, Jack replied evenly. Earth cadets will be participating. Vox made a sound that might have been a laugh. Your funeral. The Arcturian squad has won 3 years running. Their tactical minds process combat variables twice as fast as your brains. As Vox walked away, Krill approached, nodding respectfully to the humans. Their secret training sessions had continued for weeks. He's right about the Arcturians, Krill said quietly. They're exceptional strategists, but they've never faced Earth tactics. Miller grinned. They're about to get a painful education. The registration terminal displayed the odds for each team. The Arcturians stood at 2-1 favorites. Near the bottom of the list, Earth squad was listed at 500-1. They're practically begging us to take their money. Davis laughed as he signed them up. The first round of the tournament began 2 days later. The human team arrived at their assigned combat arena, a large circular room with various obstacles and cover points. The gravity was set to neutral, heavier than standard for most species, but lighter than Earth. Their opponents, a squad of elegant tentacled beings from a water world, seemed amused at drawing the humans for their first match. Good fortune, Earth beings, their leader burbled through a translator. May you not be too disappointed by defeat. The match began with a piercing tone. The objective was simple: capture the opponent's flag while defending your own. What happened next shocked the gathered observers. Instead of the standard tactic of splitting forces between offense and defense, all 5 humans charged forward together at startling speed. What are they doing? Someone gasped from the observation deck. Reed stayed slightly behind, operating a small device she had built from spare parts. It created false heat signatures that fooled the aquatic team's sensors into thinking the humans were attacking from multiple directions. When the confusion cleared, the humans had already secured the enemy flag and formed a defensive perimeter. The match ended in under 3 minutes, the fastest victory in tournament history. Primitive luck, Vox muttered from the observation deck. But it wasn't luck. In the next 2 rounds, the humans employed similarly unorthodox tactics. They used their natural strength and the higher-than-Earth gravity to move obstacles that other species couldn't budge. They employed outdated Earth military formations that weren't in any Academy textbook, catching their opponents completely unprepared. By the semifinal round, the betting odds had shifted to 5-1. The viewing galleries were packed when they faced the Arcturian team. The Arcturians, tall, blue-skinned beings with enlarged craniums, approached the humans before the match. We've studied your previous performances, their leader said, voice melodic and confident. Interesting, but ultimately predictable. Brute force cannot overcome superior tactical analysis. Jack smiled politely. We look forward to learning from you. When the match began, the humans did something that left the audience gasping. Instead of any recognizable formation, they dropped to the ground and crawled through the lowest level of the arena, beneath the Arcturians' sensor grid. Earth infantry tactics, Thorne explained later. Sometimes the old ways work best. The Academy buzzed with talk of the Deathworlders who had reached the tournament finals. No one was laughing at the humans anymore. The celebration in the human quarters was cut short when their terminal chimed with an urgent message. Jack pressed his palm against the reader, and Admiral Zenth's face appeared on screen. All senior cadets and instructors report to the main briefing hall immediately. This is not a drill. The 5 humans exchanged glances. We're not senior cadets, Reed pointed out. Jack frowned. Something's wrong. Let's go anyway. They hurried through the corridors, noticing the increased activity throughout the station. Instructors rushed past them, faces grim. When they reached the briefing hall, they found it already packed with beings from across the galaxy. Commander Vox spotted them at the entrance. "This meeting is for senior personnel only," he began, but Admiral Zenth waved him off. "Let them stay. They've earned the right with their tournament performance." The Admiral activated the central holographic display, showing a 3-dimensional map of the sector. Red markers blinked at the edges. 30 minutes ago, 3 Galactic Coalition outposts went dark, he announced. The hall fell silent. Long-range scans confirmed our worst fears. The Void Dominion has finally launched their invasion. Murmurs of fear spread through the crowd. The Void Dominion, a mysterious hive-mind species from the edges of known space, had been a theoretical threat for decades. Now, apparently, theory had become reality. "The main coalition fleet has been mobilized," Admiral Zenth continued, "but they are 4 days from intercept position. Initial analysis suggests the Dominion fleet will reach this sector in half that time." A hologram zoomed in, showing the projected path of the enemy force, directly toward the Academy's star system. Tactical Officer Krill stepped forward. "We need to analyze their attack patterns. Perhaps there is a weakness we can exploit." The Admiral nodded. "All tactical teams will begin immediate analysis of the incoming data. The Academy Defense Fleet will deploy in 6 hours to establish a defensive perimeter." As the briefing continued, Jack noticed something in the holographic display, a pattern in the Dominion ship movements. He leaned over to Reed. "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" Reed narrowed her eyes at the display. "The formation shifts, every 7 minutes and 20 seconds, like clockwork." Miller had noticed it too. "That's not tactical. That's ritualistic." Jack raised his hand. The Admiral nodded for him to speak. "Sir, the Dominion ships are moving in a predictable pattern. If we time our counterattacks to coincide with their formation shifts, we might create an opening." Commander Vox scoffed. "Primitive observation. The Coalition's best AI systems have analyzed Dominion tactics for years. Their movements are randomized to prevent predictive countermeasures." "With respect, Commander," Jack insisted, "I'm looking at the data right now. There's a clear pattern." The Admiral studied the display more carefully. "Explain, Cadet Porter." Jack stepped forward, pointing to specific ships in the formation. "Here and here. Every 7 minutes, 20 seconds, their forward units rotate backward while reserve units move up. During that 30-second transition, their firing solutions would be compromised." The room fell silent as tactical officers reviewed the data. "He's right," Krill finally said, voice betraying surprise. "How did our systems miss this?" "Because your computers are programmed to look for logical tactical advantages," Thorne explained quietly. "This movement pattern gives them none. It's ritualistic behavior, like a changing of the guard. If their species evolved from hive insects, it would be consistent with their biology." Admiral Zenth stared at the humans with new respect. "Deverek's colony was right about you Earth beings. You see patterns others miss." "Sir," Jack said, "if we could join one of the tactical planning teams." The Admiral's compound eyes blinked in what might have been apology. "I appreciate your insight, cadets, but Academy protocols are clear. First-year cadets, especially untested species, cannot participate in active combat planning." Commander Vox nodded in agreement. The humans should return to their quarters and await further instructions. As they were escorted from the briefing hall, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important, something right in front of them that could make a difference. "They don't want our help," Davis muttered as they walked back to their quarters. "No," Jack replied. but they might need it anyway. The emergency sirens blared through the station, pulsing with a rhythm that made the humans' hearts race. Jack shot up from his bunk, fully alert in seconds, a survival trait from Earth that served him well now. "Status report," he ordered as the others quickly dressed. Reed was already at the terminal, fingers flying across the interface. The Dominion fleet arrived early. "They're already in the system, less than 3 hours from Academy space." Her voice remained steady, but her eyes betrayed her concern. "The Coalition defense ships are scrambling now." Through their small viewport, they watched as the Academy's modest fleet of 12 warships and 20 training vessels detached from their docking stations. The ships formed a defensive line, preparing to delay the Dominion until reinforcements arrived. The terminal chimed. Admiral Zent's face appeared, looking more haggard than during yesterday's briefing. "All senior cadets report to Hangar Bay 6 for emergency deployment. All first and second year cadets remain in quarters until further notice." The message ended abruptly. Jack punched the wall in frustration. "They're sending trainees into battle but leaving us behind." Miller's voice was tight with anger. "After everything we've shown them." Thorne, who rarely spoke without purpose, moved to the terminal. "Reed, can you access the tactical display?" Reed nodded, bypassing security protocols with skills she'd never officially demonstrated. The main view screen showed the approaching Dominion fleet, over 50 ships in their distinctive arrow formation. There, Jack pointed at the screen. "Just like we saw yesterday. Their command structure is centralized." He traced the pattern of smaller ships surrounding a larger vessel. "That big one in the middle is coordinating the hive mind." Davis leaned closer. "If we could disrupt their communication somehow." The terminal chimed again, a different alert this time. Tactical Officer Krill's face appeared. "Cadet Porter," he said quickly, "I don't have much time. I've reviewed your observations again. You were right. The pattern is clear now that I know what to look for." "Sir, we need to target their command vessel," Jack insisted. The Admiral rejected the plan. Krill replied, frustration evident. "It would require a small ship to slip through their formation during the rotation window. A suicide mission." "Not necessarily," Reed interjected. "If the pilot timed it perfectly with their ritual shift." "It doesn't matter," Krill interrupted. "I'm being deployed. I wanted you to know you were right. Perhaps in the next life, we will serve together." The transmission cut off. Silence fell over the human quarters. Jack looked at each of his fellow cadets in turn, seeing the same determination in their eyes that he felt. "We're going," he stated simply. "How?" Davis asked. "All ships are deployed or locked down." Miller smiled, the expression somehow predatory. "Not all ships. The maintenance bay has scout vessels for repair training." "I can override the launch protocols," Reed offered. 10 minutes later, the 5 humans slipped through maintenance corridors toward the auxiliary hangar. They wore standard cadet uniforms, moving with purpose as if on official business. When questioned by a passing officer, Jack simply stated they were on special assignment from Commander Vox. Technically not a lie, since Vox had indeed specially assigned them to stay in their quarters. The maintenance bay was deserted, all personnel having been called to more critical stations. A single scout vessel sat on the pad, small, fast, and largely unarmored. "Perfect," Jack said, eyeing the ship, small enough to slip through their formation during the transition. "And likely to get us all killed," Davis added, but he was already climbing aboard. Reed quickly bypassed the security lockouts while Thorne familiarized himself with the weapon systems, rudimentary as they were on a training vessel. Launching in 30 seconds, Miller announced from the pilot's seat. Her specialty on Earth had been atmospheric fighters, but the principles were similar enough. As the bay doors opened, Jack addressed his team one final time. "They laughed at us for being Deathworlders. They laughed at our primitive tactics. But Earth taught us something they'll never understand." "What's that?" Reed asked as the engines hummed to life. Jack's expression hardened. Sometimes, survival requires sacrifice. The small scout ship shot out from the Academy station, accelerating toward the approaching battle, and certain death unless their plan worked perfectly. The scout ship trembled as Miller pushed its engines beyond safe limits. Through the forward viewport, the massive Dominion fleet grew larger, a wall of dark chitinous vessels that resembled nothing so much as a swarm of deadly insects. Coalition Defense Fleet has engaged the enemy, Reed reported from the communication station. They're following standard galactic defensive protocols. On the tactical display, the Academy ships formed a classic crescent formation, focusing their firepower on the front line of the Dominion fleet. Energy weapons flashed in the darkness of space, lighting up the void between the opposing forces. And they're losing, Thorne observed flatly. The coalition ships were already taking heavy damage, their formations breaking apart under the relentless Dominion assault. Jack checked the chronometer. 4 minutes until the next Dominion formation shift. Reed, any response to our hails? Reed shook her head. Admiral Zenth is ordering us to return to the Academy immediately. Shocking, Davis muttered as he finalized calculations at the navigation console. Transmit our plan anyway. If we fail, maybe someone else can try. A sudden explosion rocked their small vessel as a stray energy blast passed nearby. Miller's hands remained steady on the controls, her Earth-trained reflexes compensating instantly. 3 minutes to intercept, she announced. 2 enemy fighters have broken off to pursue us. Jack activated the ship-wide channel. This is it. Remember your training. Not the Academy's, but Earth's. We do what others can't because we evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day. The scout ship dove beneath the main battle line, using the chaos of the larger engagement as cover. The pursuing Dominion fighters followed, their organic-looking hulls gleaming with an eerie bioluminescence. 2 minutes, Miller called out, reaching position for the formation shift intercept. Thorne targeted the ship's minimal weapons at their pursuers. I can't destroy them with these training weapons, but I can distract them. The scout ship shuddered as Thorne fired a series of energy pulses, not powerful enough to penetrate the Dominion shields, but bright enough to temporarily blind their optical sensors. 1 minute, Reed announced. Dominion formation shift beginning in 30 seconds. Jack moved to Miller's side. Thread the needle, Miller, just like we practiced. Miller nodded, her eyes focused on the approaching enemy fleet. As predicted, the massive Dominion armada began its ritual rotation, frontline ships pulling back while reserve vessels moved forward to take their place. Now, Jack shouted. Miller fired the engines at full thrust, aiming for the narrow gap that had opened between the shifting vessels. The scout ship accelerated to dangerous speeds, structural integrity warnings blaring across every console. 10 seconds to gap closure, Davis warned. The small human vessel shot through the opening just as it began to close, the Dominion ships passing so close that the hull sensors registered their energy fields. We're through, Miller exclaimed, her voice tight with controlled excitement. Before them floated the massive Dominion command ship, a grotesque structure twice the size of the largest Academy vessel. Its surface pulsed with rhythmic lights that seemed to beat like a heart. That's their control center, Jack said, pointing to a crystalline structure at the ship's center. Their hive mind transmitter. Thorne, target everything we have on that point. Our weapons won't penetrate their shields, Thorne replied calmly. Jack nodded. I know. Understanding passed between the 5 humans without words. They had discussed this possibility during their planning. Impact in 20 seconds, Miller announced, setting the final course. Reed opened a channel to the Academy fleet. This is Earth Scout to Coalition forces. Target the Dominion command ship in 20 seconds. Their coordination will fail. The 5 humans braced themselves as their small vessel accelerated toward the Dominion command ship's crystal heart. For Earth, Jack said quietly. At the last possible moment, Miller executed a maneuver no alien species could have survived. A high G turn that sent their weapons payload tumbling toward the target while the scout ship itself veered away at an impossible angle. The makeshift missile, their detached engine core, struck the crystalline structure dead center. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the pulsing lights across the Dominion fleet stuttered, faltered, and went dark. "Their coordination is disrupted," Reed shouted. "The hive mind is severed." On their tactical display, they watched as the once organized Dominion fleet fell into chaos, ships colliding with each other or firing at random targets. The Academy channel burst into frantic communications as the coalition commanders realized what had happened and seized their advantage. 8 minutes since battle engagement. Davis noted with wonder, "We might actually survive this." The main hall of the Galactic Military Academy had never been so crowded. Beings from across the coalition packed the space, their diverse bodies creating a tapestry of colors, textures, and forms. At the center of the hall stood 5 humans in freshly pressed dress uniforms, looking somewhat uncomfortable with all the attention. Admiral Zenth approached the podium, his wings catching the light as they fluttered with excitement. Beside him stood the full Academy command staff, including Commander Vox, whose reflective eyes no longer held their usual disdain when looking at the human cadets. 10 minutes, Admiral Zenth began, his voice carrying throughout the hall. 10 minutes was all it took to end a war that our military strategists predicted would last years and cost millions of lives. The crowd murmured in agreement. The battle recordings had been played throughout coalition space, showing how the unthinkable victory had been achieved by 5 cadets from a backwater planet classified as a death world. The battle for our sector ended exactly 9 minutes and 42 seconds after the Dominion fleet engaged our forces, the Admiral continued. And it ended because 5 cadets saw what none of our advanced tactical systems could see, a weakness hidden in plain sight. Jack stood at attention, his face carefully neutral as he had been trained. Beside him, Miller suppressed a smile while Thorne remained as impassive as ever. Reed and Davis exchanged quick glances, still hardly believing they had survived their desperate gambit. "Cadet Porter, step forward," Admiral Zenth commanded. Jack took 3 precise steps forward, stopping at the exact regulation distance from the Admiral. "Your actions were, by Academy standards, reckless, insubordinate, and completely against protocol," the Admiral stated flatly. A tense silence fell over the hall. "They were also," Zenth continued, his voice softening, "the most brilliant tactical decision I have witnessed in 300 years of military service." The Admiral lifted a gleaming medal, the Coalition Star, the highest honor in the galactic military. By unanimous decision of the Coalition Defense Council, all 5 Earth cadets are awarded the Coalition Star for extraordinary valor and tactical brilliance in combat. The ceremony continued as each human received their medal. When it was Commander Vox's turn to present the medal to Jack, the tall alien paused. "I was wrong about humans," he said quietly, so only Jack could hear. "Your species' ability to survive against overwhelming odds makes you uniquely valuable to the Coalition." Jack accepted the medal with a nod. "We're just doing what Earth taught us to do, sir. Adapt and overcome." After the formal ceremony, the humans found themselves surrounded by cadets and officers alike, all eager to speak with the Deathworld heroes, as they were now called throughout the station. Tactical Officer Krill approached them, accompanied by several high-ranking officials. "Cadets. No, officers now," he corrected himself with a smile. "The Coalition Defense Council has a proposal for you." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Sir, they want to establish a new division," Krill explained. "A special tactics unit combining Earth's primitive survival instincts with the Coalition's advanced technology. They want you 5 to help train the first class." Reed's eyes widened. "Us. Teaching at the Academy." "Not just teaching," one of the officials said. "Leading. Your mission to the Dominion command ship showed us that sometimes the old ways are the most effective. Sometimes thinking like a species that evolved on a death world is exactly what we need." Miller grinned. "So no more being called primitive." "On the contrary, Krill said. "We've realized that what we called primitive is actually specialized evolution. Earth's harsh conditions produced intuitive tactical thinking that our technology-dependent species have lost." Later that evening, the 5 humans gathered in their new quarters, spacious officer accommodations with a view of the stars. "Not bad for some Deathworld cadets," Davis remarked, looking out at the fleet being repaired in the distance. Jack joined him at the viewport. "They're not laughing anymore." "No," Thorne agreed, a rare smile crossing his face. "Now they're listening." The humans looked out at the stars together, knowing that the galaxy would never view Earth the same way again. The Deathworlders had proven their worth, and in just 10 minutes they had changed the course of galactic history.